On last week's What Makes a Guitarist Elite, we talked about guitarists that were more known for their songwriting abilities over their lead playing and stuff like that. Today, I'm going to be talking about guitarists that were key foundations to forming new genres or exposing a bigger audience to certain genres. And I'm going to start off with one of the most important guitar players, well, to me at least, and that would be Johnny Marr. Now yes, I could have very easily included Johnny Marr in last week's video talking about songwriters because he's an excellent songwriter. But that being said, I wanted to put him into this category because to me, he's really a pioneer on top of that. Marr, he focuses so much on the melody and the way that he plays. He consciously went out of his way to kind of not include a lot of traditional blues and blues rock kind of things that were extremely popular at that time and had been for, decades prior to that in his playing. And by giving himself these limitations and making the cognizant effort of doing it, I think it really has helped him form his own unique sound. And he's somebody that when he plays, I know it is him pretty much immediately. His pick attack, his choices of chords, it's very simple sounding a lot of the time. But it's pretty complicated when you actually break it down and want to play it. A truly, truly magnificent guitar player. Next, we're going to focus on two guitarists who played together. Long before there was Nirvana, long before Foo Fighters, long before any of these kind of crazy grungy things started to come along into the world, there was a band called Sonic Youth. They had two guitar players, Lee Ranaldo and Thurston Moore. These guys just made absolutely crazy over the top sounds a lot of the time. They really pushed the limits on what guitars could do and what was, acceptable and okay in music as far as, really taking chances. And I really respect it. And I don't think people really realize because they're not really thought about as an all-time great band by a lot of people. A lot of people don't even know who they are. However, without them, we would not have people like Dave Grohl. We simply wouldn't. And I'm sure that at some point Grohl himself has acknowledged that they were a big influence because, quite frankly, it's obvious when you hear some of his style of playing that there's a lot of Thurston and Lee in, what he decides to play. And just as a side note here, those two have two of the coolest signature Fender models ever made, in my opinion. They're both Jazzmasters. One's green, one's blue. One comes with a wide range humbucking pickups. The other one comes with Seymour Duncan Antiquities, if I recall correctly. And if you ever see one of those, pick them up. They're really hard to come by now. You used to be able to get them for about $1,000. Now, good luck. Now, I was mentioning some 90s guitar players who may or may not have been influenced by Sonic Youth. And I'm going to stick in that decade for this next artist. He is just the smoothest player and makes everything look so effortless. And another player that when you hear him play, you know it's him. That's John Frusciante. Now, it's obvious he influenced a lot of players, especially a lot of really well-known players and well-respected bands, with his choices and his way of implementing that funk into his playing, on top of having the really aggressive-sounding tones that, Chili Peppers were also used for. But the way that he would incorporate really technical voicings and chording into his, and the percussiveness of how he strums the guitar and his parts, it's truly inspirational. And it was, the first of his kind to do so, and it spawned, like I said, a lot of guitarists that kind of emulate or take pieces of his playing even to this day. So I think it's impossible to make a list of these kinds of players and ignore him in this aspect. Now I'm going to wrap this list up with somebody that absolutely was influenced by John Frusciante, and that would be Wong. Wong is just his own thing. Wong is an excellent composer. He is somebody who really put the time in to the back end. A lot of people skip the parts that he really focused on, and that is really mastering technique, really breaking down how people got the sounds they did. Also, he's a great composer. A lot of the stuff that he writes, he'll kind of noodle out different pieces for it. He'll sing it out, different like horn sections or different rhythm sections and stuff like that, into his phone, and then send it over to people. And by some act of God, it's so coherent that they're able to pretty much get right there. Now, his playing isn't really over the top, and if you don't really focus in on it, you might not think he's, you know, on an elite level as far as guitar playing ability goes. But if you really watch what he's doing, and then you try and do it yourself, that's really hard. His ability, his muting is very underrated, and that's not a skill that a lot of people associate with high-end guitar players. But because he's constantly, you know, kind of running on 16ths or 32nds with his fretting hand, or his strumming hand, his fretting hand has a lot of responsibility to be a precision tool for him. And the way that he's able to do that, even when going from just basic arpeggios and then right into those funk lines, he's another guy that's kind of bringing back the less is more. A lot of people are trying to go and write a little bit too complicated for the sake of writing something too complicated, and that doesn't always work with the listener, the end customer. With a guitar player, you might watch that and be like, oh, that's so good, I want to learn how to do that. However, I think Corey's strongest suit is knowing when to back off and let other people in the band have their spot to shine. And that's something that everybody should have a little bit better of in their arsenal as musicians. And that's going to wrap up this little brief section of what makes a guitarist elite. I think all of the guitar players I mentioned are elite in their own right. They're all innovative in their own right. They're great players. So if you like what I am doing here, please leave me a like. We just hit 300 subscribers, and that's really awesome. Really appreciate that, you guys. Leave me a comment. Obviously, I'm trying to stick to 5. I don't want to go more than 5 and these kinds of topics of videos. I think it gets, a little bit, too long in the tooth at that point. However, I'm open to suggestions. And other than that, I will see you tomorrow for another guitar video. Take care, you guys.